Hey everyone, it's Sarah and welcome to my crochet channel. Today's video I'm going to show you how to make this little cozy for a coffee cup. It'll fit your standard size coffee cup, and you can move the button if you need to make it smaller or larger around to adjust to different size mugs, because you know they're not all the same size. It'll also fit your 16-ounce jar or even your stand-up coffee mug or coffee cups that are similar to what you get at, say, Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts. So it's very versatile because it's attached with a button. Now, as you can see, you do not have to make it in these colors. You can make it in any of a color combination that you want to. For today's demonstration, I'm going to be using this white and lavender flower, and I'm going to be using these three colors. I'm going to use green for one of the stripes, I'm going to use the lavender for the other stripe, and then I'll do the main portion of the cozy in the white, which here is brown. Now you're going to need the pattern for our sunflower applique, and you can find that pattern. I'll put that link up there, and you can also find it down in the notes underneath the video. You need to go and make your flower from that video, and we're going to use that on this cozy. We'll be stitching today with our H hook, which is a 5.0 millimeter crochet hook. You'll need a button that's about 1 inch to 1.5 inches, and I'm going to use this pretty one because I think it matches nicely with the lavender. You'll need a needle, and you'll need your scissors. This is a great project. Just get in your stash yarn that you have left over and make some adorable flowers and coffee cozies. We're going to begin with our main color. We'll make our slip knot, and we're going to chain 28 chains. And I do recommend that you chain these 28 chains just a little bit loose. I have chained my 28 chains, and I chained them just a little bit loose. We're going to begin by placing a double crochet in the 4th chain from the hook. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yarn over, go in, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through the first 2, yarn over, and go through the second 2. Now this chain 3 will count as 1, and then we stitched 1 double crochet in that 4th chain. Now we're going to stitch 1 double crochet in each of those chains across. One double crochet in each of the chains, working all the way across. I've stitched my double crochets all the way across. We started in the 4th chain from the hook, and our chain 3 counts as our first double crochet. So we have 26 double crochets. I'm going to be changing colors, so I'm going to bring in my purple or lavender, and I'm going to leave my color 1, which is my white, attached. I'm going to chain 1, make sure everything's snug down, and turn. And now I'm going to stitch 1 single crochet in each stitch across. Your chain 1 does not count as a stitch, and so we're going to stitch 1 single crochet starting in that first stitch and stitch in each double crochet across, 1 single crochet in each double crochet across. I've stitched 1 single crochet in each of the double crochets across. I have 26 single crochets. I'm going to chain 1 and turn. And again, our chain 1 does not count as a stitch. And I'm going to stitch right in that first single crochet and stitch 1 single crochet in each single crochet across. So just to repeat, 1 single crochet in each of the single crochets across our row. I have stitched that row of single crochet across, and I'm done with this purple color. Now if I was going to do 2 stripes like this one that are the same color, I would leave that attached. But since I'm not going to do another row of purple, my next row is going to be green after I do some rows of white. So I'm going to go ahead and cut my lavender off. I'm going to bring back in my white, snug that down, and chain 3. 1, 2, 3. So to make sure that's snug down, we're going to turn our work. Our chain 3 counts is our first double crochet, and so we're going to double crochet in the next stitch. And we're going to double crochet in each of those single crochets across. 1 double crochet in each of the single crochets across. I double crocheted in each stitch across. I have 26 double crochets. I'm going to chain 3 and turn, and again I'm going to start in the second stitch because my chain 3 counts as my first, and double crochet in each of the double crochets all the way across this row. 1 double crochet in each double crochet across. I've completed that row of double crochet, and I'm again going to change my color. I'm also going to leave my white attached. So I'm going to bring in my next color. And if I was using the same color as the lavender, I would not have cut my yarn. I would go ahead and bring that up. All right? But since I decided to use a third color, I cut my yarn. Oops, I only need to chain 1. And turn. I was going to chain 3, but we only need to chain 1 because we're going to do 2 rows of single crochet just like we did down here on the lavender. So we'll go right in our first stitch because our chain 1 does not count as a stitch, and we'll stitch 1 single crochet in each of the double crochets across. We'll chain 1 and turn and stitch that second row of single crochet just like we did for these 2 lavender rows down here. So 1 single crochet in each stitch across, turn, chain 1, and repeat for 2 rows of single crochet in our bright green color. I've completed those 2 rows of single crochet, and we're going to leave this yarn attached this time. We're just going to bring back in our white, and the reason we're leaving that attached is we're going to stitch the tab for our button on this end, okay? And we'll be using that color. So we'll bring our white back in and chain 3 and turn. And we're going to stitch 1 double crochet in each of the single crochets across. Again, our chain 3 counts as our first, so we'll go in the next stitch and stitch a double crochet, and then we'll stitch 1 double crochet in each of those single crochets across. We're going to double crochet in each of these single crochets across, and then we're also going to add a trim on the other end, and then we'll come back and add the button tab and cover up those ends that we left. Don't worry, we're going to make it nice and tidy. So I'm going to stitch across, stitching 1 double crochet in each of those single crochets across. So I have double crocheted across, and now we're going to single crochet evenly down this side. So we're going to chain 1, and there isn't a set number of stitches on this end. We just want to make sure that we go in the sides of the stitches and not the holes. So we're just going to evenly single crochet and make the end of our coffee mug or coffee cup cozy nice and neat, so we don't have any rough edges. And again, try to go in those stitches and not the big gaping holes, or you'll just make those holes a little bit bigger and it won't be nice and neat. Whoops, I wanted to go through that stitch. There we go. And just look at it, make sure it's not too scrunched up and not too far apart. All right, so now I'm to the last row here on the last stitch. I'm going to cut this yarn and we're going to tie that off. And then we'll use our needle and weave that in, and that'll be all nice and neat and finished on this end, of course. All right, so I'm just going to go in, and I'm going to be careful to stay in the white yarn because we don't want any little bits of white showing through our lavender. So we're just going to go back and forth, make sure we go through the stitches and the fibers several times, and then we'll snip that off. And this side is all nice and neat and completed. I do have a little bit of a hole there, but I'm not too worried about it. When my tab comes across, it's going to cover that. All right, so now we need to deal with this side. We're going to use this piece of yarn that we left attached to make our button tab. But before we do that, I want to go ahead and deal with these ends so that the side is neat and tidy and we won't have to worry about it. So we're going to go ahead and weave in the white one, the 2 lavender ones, and the short green one. Weaving back and forth, going through stitches and fibers of the yarn and making it all nice and tidy. I've weaved in all the ends except for the one that's still attached, and it's all nice and tidy. And so what we're going to do is we're going to turn it over. We're going to go in the first stitch of the single crochet and chain 1. And we're going to stitch 8 single crochets, working across from here to the second row here of the lavender. And we need to evenly space 8 single crochets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And we're going to chain 1, and then we want to look at it. I'm going to turn it over, make sure it's nice and evenly spaced, because that's going to be our button tab. We chained 1 and turn, and we're going to stitch 1 single crochet in each of those 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, chain 1, and then we'll repeat that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Chain 1, turn, and repeat. Chain 1, and now we're going to make the little buttonhole. So we're going to turn, we're going to stitch 1 single crochet in the first 3, 1, 2, 3, we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, we're going to skip the next 2 single crochets and stitch 1 single crochet in the next 3. Chain 1 and turn. Now we'll stitch 1 single crochet in those 3, 1, 2, 3. Then we'll stitch 3 single crochets in that chain 3 space, 1, 2, 3. That's our buttonhole. And then 1 single crochet in those last 3, 1, 2, 3. Now we're going to cut our yarn, tie off, and weave in that end. And the only thing left we have to do is sew on our button and sew on our flower. Make sure that's weaved in nice and tight. And there is our coffee cozy. It just needs its button and flower. So I've got just a plain coffee mug. I'm going to put the button flap through. I'm going to bring it around, just sort of eyeball to see where to put my button. Okay. All right, so it looks like about right there. Now, the key to sewing on a button is to make sure that you go through stitches and not holes. And so I like to come up, leave a little for tying in the back, and go through those stitches first. And that gives me a nice good hold. Then I can take my button and sew it on. If you sew it through the holes of the stitches, it might not be sturdy. So you want to make sure you get it through some stitches. And you'll want to do that a couple of times until you're happy. Make sure I get through a stitch. And you'll do that a couple of times. Like I said, boy, that's a tight fit. Until you're happy that that button is going to stay put. All right, now I'm going to tie what I call 3 knots. I do just 1, 2, and then I put the 2 together and do, I don't know if it's called the twist knot, but it works great for what I like to do. And then I push that loop as close as I can to that button. And it was a nice tight knot, so I like that. And so my button is on and in place. And then the last thing I need to do is attach my flower. I chose this flower, that's why I went with the lavender, and I wanted the pop of green, and I think it's going to look real nice, and I'm going to set it right in the center. And what I do with these is I don't sew the petals down. I only sew around the inside. So I'm going to go in the back. I'm going to come up. I'm going to leave a little bit for weaving in. And if you want to pin it in place, you can. I just don't. I'm just going to do some stitches going around the edge of the flower. And I want to try to keep it centered between those two stripes. And I have about, 12 to 14 inches of yarn on here. And I'm just going to keep going around until I run out of my yarn, because I want this flower to stay put. All right, let's look in the back. Oh, I've worked my way back up. And so I'm just going to tie that knot. There we go. And yes, I like to tie a knot there because this is going to be a spot where it's going to get some wear and tear. You can weave it in if it makes you feel a little better. And you can also put a little dab of fabric glue on these two knots, one for the button and one for here, if you want to. All right, so there is my 3D flower on my coffee mug cozy. Here's my button with my tab, and here's my coffee mug cozy. And here's the sunflower one I did earlier. And it's a lot of fun, and you can use lots of different colors, like all of these different colors, or whatever colors you have on hand in your yarn stash. You don't have to make it look like a sunflower or a daisy, and you can use whatever colors you have on hand. These would be perfect for a coffee or tea party. And your guests can take one home as a gift to remember your get-together.